Hey, movie explorers. Welcome back to Movies You Missed. This is episode 92. Vee, how are you today?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
Fantastic. Can't wait to get into these two Disney animated features. I don't think we've done a double Disney animated feature before.
Hercules and Tarzan.
That's what I meant. We did that one several episodes ago, so this is the second one we've done.
Episode 56.
My gosh, so it's been about 40 some odd episodes, so yeah, that would make sense why I forgot.
Yeah, it definitely deserves revisiting for sure. It's always good every couple months to do a Disney double feature.
Hell yeah, double Ds, gotta love them.
I walked into that one.
Yeah, just a little bit. But before we do that, everybody, welcome to Movies You Missed podcast. If you are brand new to us here on episode 92, we love to recommend movies. We love to discuss movies, give you some trivia, tell you all about how it went down. And the best part about it is there's no spoilers here at Movies You Missed podcast.
That's right. No spoilers here.
Not a one. So welcome to that. If you've never seen the movies we discussed today or in the last 91 episodes, you won't find out how they end. You'll just have to find out for yourself. Also, Vee and I are industry veterans from the fantastic entertainment industry. We've got 25 years under our belts, so it's a lot of fun being here every week with Vee and discussing some of our favorite movies. That's
right. It's one of the highlights of my week.
Mine too. And another highlight of my week, usually between episodes, is going to the theaters or watching something new on streaming. So I'm curious, Vee, like myself, if you've seen anything new this week.
I certainly have, because you and I are scrambling to cross off all of the movies from 2023 on our list before our recap episode at the end of the month.
Hell yeah. I think in my list I've got almost 75 right now, so I'm doing pretty good.
And what movies did you add to that list this week?
This week has been a movie-watching week for me. I'm very happy to say, because a lot of these movies I actually wanted to see in theaters, but did not get a chance to. I will start with the first one that I watched. I watched Cobweb, which is a film with Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr. It is a horror movie, but more of a thriller than anything else. It's not necessarily like a jump scare horror movie. I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5. The ending was kind of wishy-washy for me, but overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought Lizzie Kaplan was great. I know a lot of people really like Lizzie Kaplan, as do I, and I thought that movie was a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of hers, or if you like kind of like weird kind of thriller horror movies. Definitely give that one a shot. The second one was Self-Reliance. This was a Jake Johnson written and directed film. Jake Johnson plays Nick in New Girl, if you don't know him by name. This movie was a lot of fun. It's about a character that gets propositioned to play a game where he has to pretty much dodge murderers for 30 days, and if he does, he wins $1 million. Anna Kendrick is also in it. It was a lot of fun. My wife and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I would recommend this one. I would say I'd give it maybe like a high C, maybe low B minus.
It was a weird-ass movie.
Oh, so you saw it too?
I just watched it last night. That was actually going to be on the
wonderful
list of movies I talked about.
Oh, awesome. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the concept was kind of original, and I thought he did a really good job, and of course I loved Anna Kendrick in it, but man, is that a weird-ass movie.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I kept looking at Amy, I was like, this is a weird one, and she's like, I like it. I'm like, all right, I like that you like it. When it ended, I was actually very satisfied with the ending. It wasn't one of those like, oh man, it really fizzled out, but I liked it for what it was.
Yeah, same.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was just a random watch for me that it came up and it's a 2023 movie. I was like, oh, I want to give this a watch. And I watched it and I was like, whoa.
That's kind of what it was for me too. Amy brought it up because she thought it was going to be kind of like the novel that Nick was writing in New Girl. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a shot. And it obviously was nothing like that, but it was still an enjoyable movie from beginning to end.
Yeah, certainly not a movie I typically watch, but because it popped up and it said 2023 on it, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I was too. I was like, great, you know what? Fuck it. Add it to my list of 2023s.
Exactly.
After that one, and these are all not in order, I watched Chevalier, which is the movie about the first black virtuoso violinist in the 1700s. He was a friend of Marie Antoinette. He was pretty high up in the aristocracy, and I'd give this one like a high C minus. Like, there was a lot that was good about it. There was a lot that I did not enjoy. I kind of lost interest at certain points, but I remember thinking when it ended, I was like, give me another 20, 30 minutes of this guy's life story, and I probably would have really enjoyed the movie a lot more. I felt the pacing was a little off, but overall, if you're interested in it and you like classical music, especially from the 1700s, and you're interested in the Marie Antoinette story and even Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, check this movie out. It's not a bad movie. I just wanted more.
Okay, that's actually been on my list for months and months and months, and I keep just going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to give it a shot.
Yeah, it was on mine too. I remember when it was first released, and I was like, ooh, interesting. The opening of this movie was very off-putting. There was just something about it that was very much like, you know what, I'm going to turn this movie off. But I stuck with it, and I'm glad that I did because, again, I didn't know anything about this guy's life. I was in for the ride, and overall, an enjoyable movie, but I still wanted more. So I guess that's actually saying a lot. I would recommend checking it out if you're a fan of movies like that.
Okay.
And then I also watched a movie that I saw the trailer for many months ago, so I watched it on Hulu this weekend. This movie is called Slaughterhouse. This is a fantastic B-rated horror movie about a crazy sloth that is chosen to be the mascot of a sorority at a college, and it goes nuts and pretty much kills just about everybody. The movie is fully chocked with a whole bunch of female-led actors. Melissa Verdick, Sutter Nolan, Tiff Stevenson, Olivia Royer, Sidney Craven, and Lisa Embalavinar. Pardon me if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly. But this movie had me laughing my ass off and cheering pretty much the entire time. If you like B-rated horror movies, check this one out. This is not, though, one of those Lifetime B-rated horror movies or Sci-Fi Channel straight-to-DVD type of movies. These ladies brought it straight up. There was no like, oh yeah, these ladies know this movie's stupid. This was not a stupid movie. This was an awesome-ass fucking time. And I completely loved every minute of it. And if you like creature features, watch Slaughterhouse as soon as you can.
Slaughterhouse because it's a sloth. That's
yes,
so
it is.
Cute.
Oh, it's awesome. And the sloth is insane, like completely drives a car and scrolls through social media. The way that they actually utilize like social media in this movie was actually very cool.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a blast. So everybody involved, congratulations on Slaughterhouse. I absolutely loved every minute of it. And I ended the night with Baby Ruby, which is Noemi Merlant and Kit Harington. This movie is interesting. It's a bit twisted. I am not a mother, never will be a mother, so I don't know what postpartum depression is all about, but this movie really sunk its teeth into the postpartum depression situation of a new mother, and I thought Noemi was great. I thought Kit Harington was great. The movie itself was all right. It was enjoyable. I stuck with it to the end, and I liked how it ended. But I'd give this movie like a high C+, like low B-. I thought it was shot very well. It's a directorial debut from the director and writer, which is also female. So big fan of female directors and female-led films here, especially with Noemi Merlant from Portrait of a Lady on Fire. But overall, it's an enjoyable movie. Definitely not going to be for everybody, but overall, enjoyable.
Great. That's a good list of movies.
Yeah, V, what did you watch this week?
Well, other than Self-Reliance that we just talked about, I watched the Netflix-produced biopic Nyad, starring Annette Bening and Jodie Foster.
Nice. How was it?
I absolutely loved it. It was very inspirational. Oh. I love that two older women were cast as leads in a movie, and they're both phenomenal. Annette Bening is so good as Diana Nyad, who is a very outspoken, very rubs you the wrong way, bold, doesn't ever apologize kind of person, and you don't see that very often as a character portrayed by women in movies. And that was very refreshing. Jodie Foster is fantastic. I loved this role of hers, and also I'm stoked that I'm watching her in the new season of True Detective on HBO. She's very good in that in the first episode that I saw of it. And so, yes, I had a great time. It's a very inspiring, true story about Diana Nyad, who attempted to swim across the ocean between Cuba and Florida, which is insanity to me because I'm a terrible swimmer, so this whole idea is just so foreign to me, something I could never do. But the way she approaches life, especially as an older person, she turned 60 and really just didn't take any crap from anyone or our culture of saying like, oh, okay, well, it's time to slow down, you know, it's time to give up on your dreams, kind of classic idea that we have about getting older. And instead, she turns everything on its head and does what she wants to do in terms of her life and her goals. And I had a great time watching it. Like I said, very inspiring. And the two leads are so fun to watch. They're really good together. They have really good chemistry. And I was stoked that Jodie Foster finally got to play a lesbian in her career because she is one in real life. And she hasn't really had that opportunity many times in her career. So I was stoked for that as well. And
awesome.
Rhys Ifans is in it too. And we both really like him. And so it was fun to have him as a supporting character.
Oh, hell yeah. I had no idea that he was in that movie. That's awesome.
Yeah, me either until he showed up. So that was a nice surprise.
Fuck yeah. I'm a big fan of his. I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. And so that's Naiad on Netflix if you want to give it a shot.
Awesome. Well, all right. Fantastic. That is what we've seen over the last week between episodes. Now it's time to get our explorer hats on, our maps to uncharted worlds and uncharted planets. Vee, I believe you take us to a new world this week. Not a whole new world, because that's Aladdin. What do you say you start us off?
Sounds like a plan.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
It is a whole new world, and funny enough, the writers and directors of my movie wrote and directed Aladdin.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I had no idea. Look at that.
That'll be the first tie-in of many for this episode because, fair warning, neither John nor I had seen each other's picks this week.
Yes, that's one of my favorite parts about today's episode.
And then as soon as we both watched them, we realized how similar they really are.
Oh, yeah. And if you've seen both of these, you know.
Yes, that is true. Even though mine actually did come out a year after yours, so we're not going in order this week. And I know that's a little bit frustrating for you since it's very similar plot, that's for sure.
Yeah, but that's all right. It's all good.
But we chose these movies because we wanted to pick underrated animated films from the early 2000s. So that's how these two picks came about, and I'm going to start off with Disney's 2002 Treasure Planet.
Nice.
This movie stars a whole host of great actors, including the lead, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I actually have talked about on this show before. In episode 54, he was in Looper, my pick.
Hell yes.
And he actually makes his animated voice acting debut in this movie.
Oh, sweet.
And this is a classic retelling of Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island.
Ah.
I almost said Treasure Planet. And so for anybody who's read that classic tale, you know the gist of this story, but this has a nice little sci-fi spin to it. This movie starts out with a little boy reading a very cool three-dimensional holographic video replay in a book. It's a
hell yeah.
futuristic book, and it's definitely the type of reading that I would enjoy.
Oh my gosh, hell yes. It's like a pop-up book, but so far advanced.
And so this little boy is reading about this treasure that a legendary pirate has been going all over the galaxy and looting ships and bringing them back to his private, secretive planet. That's where he's hoarding all of his gold. And his mother comes in and helps him finish the bedtime story. It's a very sweet moment, and that's how we get introduced to this boy, Jim Hawkins. Flash forward about 12 years later, Jim is now a teenager, and he's riding one of the coolest vehicles, I think.
Hell yeah.
It's like windsurfing, but also a little speeder that you'd see in Star Wars, because it's a hovercraft.
Yeah, I was going to say Back to the Future-esque.
Yeah, exactly. Which, another tie-in to your movie randomly.
That was unintentional, everybody.
And so he's a little daredevil, and unfortunately, he gets in trouble with the cops, very reminiscent of the beginning of Chris Pine's Star Trek.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Joyriding usually gets you into trouble.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and so he's brought it back to his mother by these droid cops, and unfortunately his mother is extremely disappointed with him. They mentioned that he's violating his probation, so clearly this boy has been in trouble a lot before. And we learn that he's actually been rebelling and getting into a lot of trouble ever since his father abandoned the family.
Yeah.
His mother now struggles to run a little inn at kind of a spaceport planet.
Yeah.
One night after they close up, a man in a ship crash lands onto one of their landing pads near the inn. Jim helps this man get out of his ship and brings him into the inn, and they try to help him, but unfortunately he dies. But before that, he says, "You must protect this. You must keep it secret and safe from the cyborg."
Yes.
And it's this very cool orb, big metal sphere, that kind of looks like a puzzle. It looks a little bit like a Rubik's Cube, actually.
Yeah, no, it's pretty badass.
Yeah. And that's about the time a bunch of pirates show up at the end. His mom and this regular customer, Dr. Doppler, run out with him. Jim has the sphere in hand, and they run away, but unfortunately the pirates burn the inn down.
Very unfortunately, yeah. That was a bit sad and very unfortunate for his mother.
Yeah, she works really hard. She's really struggling, and so that sucked. And they go back to Dr. Doppler's place. During that time, they're all talking about what could this possibly mean? What could this be? And Jim's fiddling around with the sphere, and it's mentioned how smart this boy is. And in that moment, that's when he actually unlocks the mechanism inside the sphere, and a map pops up.
Very awesomely, might I add.
Yes, a very cool, it's like one of those lights. Remember back in the 90s when you'd turn it on and the whole sky would be projected all over your ceiling of your room? That's basically what it is. And so it tracks all the way to this planet, and he and Dr. Doppler look at it and go, oh my God, that's Treasure Planet from the stories. So now they have this map. They need to hire a ship and a crew in order to get there. And this movie is very steampunk. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited about this movie when I first saw the trailer for it. The very first trailer for it got me super pumped because it's very steampunk. It's very 19th century meets space travel. I mean, the ships that they're on are actually masted sailing ships from the 18th and 19th centuries. Very cool.
Hell yeah. When I was watching this, again, my first time, my wife has been trying to get me to watch this with her for quite some time, so we actually did a double feature and watched them both back to back, which was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And every time they got on a ship, I was like, oh, hell yeah, because I just love anything on the high seas, and now I love anything in the high planets.
Yeah, right? It's so fun. And so they actually hire this captain and this crew, and very much like the classic Treasure Island series, unfortunately, the crew that they've hired are not all they seem to be.
Unfortunately.
This crew is actually led by a cyborg, which immediately Jim, of course, is nervous about that and remembers what this old man had said when he handed him the sphere. And so then it just becomes this adventure and this race against these two crews, the captain, Dr. Doppler, and Jim, and this pirate crew that has tagged along, trying to get to Treasure Planet, trying to reach the treasure first, and of course live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And that's the gist of the movie, really. I mean, it's a classic tale, obviously. And the subplot, though, that I really like about it is this beautiful character arc and growth that Jim goes throughout it. And so it's a great coming-of-age tale as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I liked the fact that he not only was kind of, in a way, an adolescent kind of fuck up, and then as things definitely progress and he realizes what's going on, he definitely adults up and mans up, if you will. And I also really liked the animation on top of not just the fact that it's all steampunk, but the pirates were shit that you just kind of see in a fucked up dream. And this was a PG-rated animated movie, and I can only imagine how Star Trek and Star Wars were very much inspirations for a lot of the characters that were drawn in this movie.
That's a very good point because this technology has been well established. There are aliens, there are humans, the Dr. Doppler looks like a dog, Captain Amelia kind of looks like a cat.
Oh, yes.
One of the pirates looks like a really crazy scorpion spider-looking thing.
He was nuts.
He was crazy, and like I said, actually his name's Silver. He's the cyborg, and so, yeah, there's a lot of different types of humanoids around in this movie, and it's very fascinating, actually. And like I said, the trailer is actually the first thing that made me really interested in this movie, and one of the reasons is because they used the theme to this movie Far and Away. And if we ever do our bad accents episode, that's the movie I'm going to pick.
We've been talking about it for a year and a half. We really got to do it.
We do. It's Tom Cruise with an Irish accent.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman's in that one too, right?
With an Irish accent.
Yeah, there you go. Because my pick would be a Nicole Kidman bad accent movie called Cold Mountain, where she's supposed to be from the South and she's like Australian South, and it's not really working or selling very much, but the movie still is entertaining and fun.
And that's how I feel about Far and Away. And the funny thing is that it has a fantastic score, and I've always really liked it. So when they used that for the trailer in Treasure Planet, I got really hooked into this animated movie that was coming out. And funny enough, now looking into it, I remember Far and Away was actually composed by John Williams, so no wonder I like it.
Wonderful. There you go. So, V, would you say that Dr. Doppler and Captain Amelia are anthropomorphic?
Yes, they are.
All right. And they're not on all fours.
No, one of my favorite words.
All fours?
Anthropomorphic.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Nod back to a previous episode.
Indeed.
Another reason why I love this movie, like I said, it's steampunk, which is one of my favorite fictional universes and cultures. Anything steampunk, which is why I loved that Jude Law and Angelina Jolie movie.
Oh, yes, Sky Captain in the World Tomorrow.
Sky Captain in the World Tomorrow, that's right.
I never saw that. I heard it was a lot of fun, though.
It was a lot of fun. I was so bummed that it bombed in the box office, so they didn't make any more of them.
It did. Oddly enough, my dad and I were planning to see it, but I was so hopped up on Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx that I wanted to go see Collateral again, so we went and saw that for a second time together instead of going to see Sky Captain in the World Tomorrow.
I mean, fair.
Yes.
And there are some really good lines in this film, too. First of all, when Dr. Doppler is trying to convince Jim that this is going to be a great adventure when they get on the ship, and we're going to be spending months together.
Well, Jim, this should be a wonderful opportunity for the two of us to get to know one another. You know what they say, familiarity breeds, contempt. But in our case...
Look, let's just find the ship, okay?
You know what's funny? Dr. Doppler, I knew who he was immediately. But then about a half an hour into the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. Is that Kevin Kline?
It kind of sounded a little bit like Kevin Kline for a while.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't Kevin Kline.
And I'll get into that in a minute. But there are some other great nods to classic films in general, and one of the things that Dr. Doppler says to Jim Hawkins, the lead character, is,
"Dang it, Jim, I'm an astronomer, not a doctor!"
I like that part very much.
He's like, well, I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor.
Classic nod to Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
No, it's a classic nod to the OG Star Trek.
I know, but there's an awesome moment in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective where he does do the whole like, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a pool man.
That's right. Fair. And then I don't know if you caught it, but at one point they said they are going to need a bigger boat.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Nod to Jaws, of course. And there's some really great supporting characters, including because what movie, especially a sci-fi movie, doesn't have some adorable little sidekick?
Oh, of course.
Star Wars, of course, has all of their droids. A lot of other sci-fi movies have these cute little alien creatures. And in Treasure Planet has something called Morph.
Yeah.
Which is very sweet and adds a lot of comedic relief to this movie as well.
Definitely.
So that's my summary of Treasure Planet. Really fun movie. Very classic early 2000s. Even the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls has the theme song.
Yes, he does.
Which I actually really enjoyed.
Oh, yeah. Both the songs that John Resnick wrote for this movie were very good songs.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad you liked them as well.
Yeah, I am a Goo Goo Dolls fan, even though he does not like the name of his band. He's on record saying he hates the name, but he can't change it because it's tattooed on his arm. But he's a great artist. I've always liked the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me a lot of my high school experience, so it was fun.
There you go.
And before I get into the cast of this film, I'd just love to talk a little bit more about your experience watching it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I put it on and watched it. It was...
Great. Recipe for success.
It was definitely a lot of fun. Like I've said before, I usually watch your movie and then my movie. So halfway through your movie, I looked to my wife and said, so this is Atlantis a year later. And
Yes.
she was like, it kind of is, huh? And I was like, yeah, well, we'll watch Atlantis after this and we'll just compare them both and see how they go. But no, overall, very much enjoyed the movie. It was entertaining. I thought Dr. Doppler was great. I really enjoyed when Ben showed up. I'm a big Martin Short fan, especially these days with Only Murders in the Building. Been a big fan of him since Father of the Bride, really. I know a lot of people know him from early Saturday Night Lives. I've been watching him since I can remember, and I would love to go to one of his and Steve Martin shows if they do that again. I know they're both in their 70s. I'm a big fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'm a big fan of the voice actress who plays Captain Amelia, and throughout the movie I was trying to pinpoint like who the other voice actors were, and I actually couldn't because I don't think I had heard of them before, but on top of the voice cast, the animation of this movie is pretty fucking stellar. Like, really good use of computer-generated images, great hand-drawn animation, and on top of what you said, steampunk, but very Star Wars and very Back to the Future. There's that feel that George Lucas has always talked about, how a lot of the technology and robots are built from old pieces of, rubble from past wars and stuff like that. And I really felt that they encapsulated that really well in Treasure Planet. And I like the story. Of course, Treasure Island, we've heard this trope before, but it was very bright. It was very fresh. It was funny. It had some moments where you're like, oh, holy shit, well, that didn't see that coming. So overall, for the entirety of the movie, it was very enjoyable. And I would definitely watch it again. I'm glad that this podcast and you were the reason to watch it, but at the same time, I kind of wish maybe a few years ago I would have been like, hey, babe, let's put on Treasure Planet, and had seen it before. But being introduced to it on the podcast fresh is definitely a good way to go, I think.
Great. Well, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad that now it can be part of your continually growing Disney collection, of course.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I do hope they release this in 4K at some point, because it definitely
That would be awesome.
Right? Especially because it deserves to be, given how beautifully animated this movie is.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, and that's one thing I will say. When I pushed play on it on Disney Plus, it was in the old aspect ratio. It was not in widescreen.
Correct. Yes, it's one of the very last Disney movies to not be in widescreen.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. But in a way, it added to the charm of the movie, because while it is technically futuristic, it still made it feel like we're watching something from a long time ago, Again,
steampunk, right?
Exactly. There we go.
Good. Well, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I'm always glad when one of us gets to check off a movie that's been on our list for quite some time, like years and years.
Yeah.
So
hell yeah.
It's always nice to do that. And then after all that time, realize that you do, in fact, really like the movie too.
Absolutely.
And so, unfortunately, one of the things I wanted to do, and one of the things that I like to do when we pick animated movies, is have you guess some of the voice actors. You have, of course, already guessed several of them, but nevertheless, I'm going to go through them and have you guess the ones you didn't point out yet. First and foremost, like we said, Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Jim Hawkins, the lead character of this film. As I said, I discussed him in episode 54 with my pick of Looper. He really became most famous for his work on Third Rock from the Sun, being the youngest alien. He's so cute in that show.
That is one of the most underrated shows, and it went out perfectly. The series ended absolutely fantastically. John Lithgow, everybody in that fucking show, all four of them, magnificent sitcom. Yes,
it really was. I wonder if it's streaming anywhere like Peacock.
I don't know. I have season 1 on DVD, and when Amy and I watched all of it, we were like, we got to have this. This is something that we have to revisit all the time, and we never got 2, 3, and 4, but we do have season 1.
Yeah, we definitely need to find it on streaming, because it certainly deserves a revisit.
Hell yes.
He then grew up and became a pretty great movie star. He not only was in 50-50, which is a movie both of us love.
Oh, yes.
He, of course, was in The Dark Knight Rises. Not a great movie. But
I like it until Marion Cotillard dies.
That's the worst death in cinema history.
Pretty bad.
But I'd be willing to watch a movie with him as Robin.
Oh, absolutely.
Picking up the torch.
Hell yes.
He plays Lincoln's son in the movie Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis.
There we go.
He, of course, is in Inception.
Hell yes, as Arthur. Yeah.
And 10 Things I Hate About You.
Great times.
Yes. And then Dr. Doppler. You've guessed who he is?
Yeah, I did. Yes, David Hyde Pierce, 100%.
That's right. The brother in Frasier, David Hyde Pierce. He also is a voice actor in a Pixar movie.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yes.
He is in A Bug's Life. He plays the stick bug, Slim.
Yeah. I love in the outtake when he's like, you can see me, right? I love that moment.
Bring back Pixar outtakes.
Oh, hell yes.
He actually is in one of the pics of our first ever episode where we had a guest host. He stars in Down with Love with Ewan McGregor.
That's right. He does. Yes, he's great in that.
And I just found this out by doing my research. He plays the delivery room doctor in Addams Family Values.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I guess I don't remember him in that moment.
No, it was a very quick appearance, but I thought that was a great little Easter egg.
Hell yeah.
Captain Amelia is played by
Emma Thompson.
That's right. Which, funny enough, she has a connection to last week's pick of yours, because she's in MIB 3.
Oh, that's right. Yes, she is. She plays O.
Yeah. She's great in that. And I was first introduced to her in the 90s because she is in Much Ado About Nothing, directed by her former husband, Kenneth Branagh.
Absolutely.
Then she was in a fantastic Anthony Hopkins movie called The Remains of the Day.
Oh, I've never heard of that one.
Oh, adapted from the classic novel. It's very good and subdued and very Victorian.
Oh, okay. Cool.
She's in Sense and Sensibility with Alan Rickman.
Oh.
She, of course, is Professor Trelawney in Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah, I like her in that. Oh, man. And what is it, Deathly Hallows? Oh, no. It's not Deathly Hallows. It's whenever that fucking crazy bitch comes in.
Dolores Umbridge.
When she kicks her out, I remember like watching that movie and being like, oh no.
Heartbreaking.
Her hair and glasses, just so awesome, though.
That's the most angry I get during the entire Harry Potter series when Dolores Umbridge is her bully.
Yeah. My wife is
awful.
like, oh, this is the Umbridge movie. I'm like, God damn it.
Hate her.
But what a fantastic actress.
Yes. Imelda Stanton is a great actress. And then Emma Thompson goes on to star in Stranger Than Fiction, a Will Ferrell movie where she plays the author.
Absolute fantastic movie. It might be my favorite Will Ferrell movie.
I've never seen it.
Oh, well, it's going to be on my list and you'll definitely see it.
Okay, great. She then makes a very small appearance in I Am Legend. Remember, she's the doctor, and they play it on the TV, who purportedly cured rabies. And remember, the cure for it then turns and morphs into the problem. Right.
I Am Legend. Oh, man.
She's only shown very briefly, but I always thought that was a cool cameo.
I like I Am Legend. That's a good one.
I don't, because I read the book.
Oh, okay.
She's in Nanny McPhee.
Not a bad movie. The person you need is Nanny McPhee. That's Colin Firth and Kelly MacDonald.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
She's in Saving Mr. Banks with Tom Hanks.
Great movie.
She then went on to voice the mom in a Pixar movie.
Did she?
It's Scottish.
Oh, wait.
She's the mom in Brave.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that at all, actually, and I've seen Brave a bunch of times. Wow. Well, that's cool.
She continues to work with Disney because she then was the voice of Mrs. Potts in the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, she was.
And the spin-off Cruella.
That's right. Yes, she was in Cruella.
With Emma Stone.
I like Cruella. That's a good one.
So for a couple of these voice actors, you wouldn't be able to recognize them just off the bat, but they are recognizable people once you know who they are. So Roscoe Lee Brown plays Mr. Arrow, the first officer for Captain Amelia.
Yeah.
He was the narrator in Babe.
Oh, whoa.
And I know you love that movie, so I had to share that
I
tidbit.
do. Yeah, Babe is great.
And then Billy Bones, who is the man who comes into the inn with the sphere originally. He kind of looks like a snapping turtle.
Yes.
That is Patrick McGoohan, and this is actually his last ever role before he passed away at 80.
Oh, wow.
Patrick McGoohan was Edward the Longshanks in Braveheart.
Oh, my gosh. No way.
One of the
I hate him.
best, worst villains ever. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God. He's so brilliant in Braveheart.
And brutal.
Oh, I fucking love Braveheart.
It's one of your picks in the near future.
It is. Oh, God, that movie is masterful.
And Michael McShane plays Hans, so he's part of the pirate crew in this film.
No way.
He's the really big guy who has a red face and a mohawk. Michael McShane is, first of all, he's Friar Tuck in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And he is also the psychologist in Office Space.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's great.
So that's who Michael McShane is. As you said, Martin Short plays Ben, who's a robot in this movie. Sarah, Jim's mom.
Yeah.
Did you catch who voices her?
I actually did not. No,
Okay,
the credits
good.
went by too fast, and I couldn't place her.
No worries. She is she's the sister in a very famous 80s and 90s sitcom.
Okay.
She is also one of the killers in the Scream franchise.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my gosh. Laurie Metcalf?
Laurie Metcalf. Good job.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's fucking cool. Yeah,
Yes.
I right when you said killers in the Scream franchise, I was like, oh, well, it had to be Scream 2.
Yep.
Because, okay, whoa, that's cool.
Good
I like Laurie
catch.
Metcalf.
I like Laurie Metcalf too. Yes, she is the sister in Roseanne, of course.
Oh, yeah. I've never actually seen Roseanne.
Oh, I watched some episodes in the 90s because I was just growing up during that time. It wasn't a regular staple in our household, but I have seen some episodes.
All right.
As you said, she's in Scream 2, and then, of course, she plays the mom in Lady Bird more recently.
Yes, she was nominated for an Oscar for that movie, I believe.
I think so, too. Scroop, the really evil pirate who looks kind of like a spider, crab, scorpion cross.
Yeah. Yes.
He's voiced by Michael Wincott, who was the go-to villain of the 90s.
Really?
He was the 90s it villain. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Not only is he the villain in The Crow, he's also Guy of Gisborne in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh, shit.
Well, at least I didn't use a spoon.
Hell yeah.
And then he's in The Three Musketeers.
Oh, no way. Like, the Three Musketeers, Oliver Platt, Chris O'Donnell, Kiefer
because he
Sutherland?
plays
Fuck yeah.
Rochefort, the guy with the eye patch.
Oh, damn.
That's
Hell
Michael
yes.
Wincott. He's got that raspy voice that's kind of hot, but also a bit foreboding.
Sure, sure.
He's also in Strange Days.
Oh, sweet.
And
Catherine Bigelow.
That's right. And more recently, he's in Nope.
Really?
He's the camera guy.
Oh, wow. I saw Nope once, and I've been actually meaning to watch it again. I enjoyed it, but I don't recall him in that movie.
No worries, but that's Michael Wincott. I've always been a fan of his. He's a great
Awesome.
bad guy. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And then James Newton Howard scored this film.
Yes.
I talked about him because he actually scored Dave from episode 12.
Right.
He has 181 composing credits.
My God.
That is how many TV shows and movies he has composed.
That's madness.
He's quite prolific, but I am a big fan of his, and I do think he is owed some recognition, so I'm going to run through these pretty quickly.
Okay.
James Newton Howard has scored Major League, a ton of Julia Roberts movies, including Pretty Woman, Dying Young, My Best Friend's Wedding, Runaway Bride, and Charlie Wilson's War.
Jeez.
He scored My Girl, The Fugitive, which has a fantastic score,
Oh, yeah.
Waterworld, Space Jam,
God damn.
The Devil's Advocate, The Sixth Sense, Signs, The Village, so all of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, basically.
Goodness gracious.
Blood Diamond, Water for Elephants, The Tourist, Maleficent, The Hunger Games, I Am Legend, speaking of,
My God.
and two of his best scores, I think, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
Hell yes.
He also scored your pick this week.
He absolutely did indeed.
So that's James Newton Howard.
That's so awesome.
Phenomenal composer.
You know, it's funny. I used to get him and James Horner mixed up every now and then.
A lot, yes.
Because of the J and the H.
Well, and I also oftentimes think he's related to Randy Newman.
Ah,
So there's
sure.
there's a lot of stuff going on.
bug? Little bug.
And Ron Clements and John Musker are a writer-director duo. I've spoken about them before because they wrote and directed Hercules in episode 56, which was my pick.
Indeed.
And they wrote and directed The Great Mouse Detective,
Oh, so good.
The Little Mermaid,
Also so good.
Aladdin, as I said,
Magnificent.
The Princess and the Frog.
One of my most favorite Disney movies of the last 25 years. When my wife and I went on our honeymoon, we stayed at Port Orleans in Orlando.
Aw.
And when we walked around the grounds to get some cocktails before we went to the pool, I had the Princess and the Frog soundtrack playing on my phone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that movie so much. Louis the alligator is my spirit animal.
Okay.
Animated movie-wise, Louis in Princess and the Frog, the alligator trumpet player, totally my spirit animal.
I could see that for sure.
Hell yeah.
They also wrote and directed Moana.
Fucking A. My God.
They're all over Disney. Pretty great.
Fantastic.
This movie that came out in 2002 had a $140 million budget.
Whoa.
It is the most expensive traditionally animated film ever made.
Wow.
In the U.S., it made $38 million. Yeah.
Yikes.
Worldwide, it only grossed $110 million.
Oh, damn.
So this is one of the biggest flops we've covered on this show so far, but
Yeah.
like we said, movies you missed.
Indeed. Wow.
Unfortunately, 8 Crazy Nights came out the same day, which was another animated film which did way better in the theaters.
Yeah.
So it was released at a bad time, unfortunately. And it also cost them $40 million in advertising.
Oh, my God.
This was a $180 million movie.
Good Lord.
And until 2011, it was Disney's biggest financial loss in history.
Oh, my God. What was the 2011 loss? John Carter?
Probably. Yeah.
Oh.
Which is another movie I love.
Wow.
So, unfortunately, this didn't do well, but I don't think that box office loss translates to the quality of this film. I really enjoy it and still recommend it. And it was the first ever feature film to be released simultaneously in regular and IMAX theaters.
Oh, very cool.
So it started that trend, which is nice.
Yeah.
And as you said, you really like the animation. It is a gorgeous film, and that's actually because there are 3 different types of animation in this movie.
Oh, really?
All the human characters are hand-drawn. John Silver's cyborg leg, arm, eye, and the robot Ben are flat-rendered CGI.
Oh, wow.
And then the ship was created using Disney's Deep Canvas process.
Fucking A.
So there are 3 types of animation in this film, and I actually really love that flexibility that are in animated movies when they have multiple forms of animation, similar to Tarzan, right? When you were talking about the jungle and stuff. I actually think the movies look richer because of it.
I completely agree. Yeah, it really pops.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see not only Mickey Mouse, but also Stitch in the bookcase of young Jim's room in the first scene of this movie.
Crazy.
Yeah, little Easter eggs. And I don't know if you caught the name of the ship.
No.
It's the RLS Legacy.
Okay.
And it's a reference to the author of Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And there's a storyline of this film. All of these people are on this ship, and they're traveling through space, right? And the first question is, well, how the hell can they breathe? This actually is a reference to Ethereum, and they talk about it a little bit in the movie, but Ethereum is a theory from 19th century physics called ether. It was believed to be the medium that light travels through and what fills up space in outer space. And so physicists in the 19th century thought that's what made up empty space. And through that theory, because it was an actual element, there was a thought that you could breathe in space.
Wow.
And again, being a steampunk movie, makes sense that they would use that theory.
That completely does. That's pretty badass. I've not heard of that at all.
Yeah, and so I wanted to make sure I explain that because that's always the first question when people watch this movie or I recommend this movie. They're like, what the hell? They can breathe in space. I'm like, well, it's because it's steampunk and that was the theory back in the day about outer space before we actually traveled to outer space.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really, really badass.
Good. I'm glad you liked that tidbit. And this is actually Disney's 3rd adaptation of the book Treasure Island.
Oh, yeah.
There's the original adaptation in 1950, and then in 1996, starring the legendary Tim Curry.
Hell yes. Muppet Treasure Island.
Muppet Treasure Island.
Love it.
A Jim Henson production.
Fucking killer.
And unfortunately, because this was such a box office bomb, a planned sequel was canceled.
Oh, darn.
When John Lasseter was appointed CEO of Walt Disney, his first task was actually to cancel all sequels and television shows to try to get everything back on track.
Oh, wow.
So there was a treatment, which is basically the pre-script, right, of films. It's called a treatment. And in that proposed treatment, Jim now has fallen in love with a girl named Kate at the Royal Interstellar Academy.
Oh.
They must team up with Silver to stop the villainous Ironbeard from freeing the inmates of Botany Bay Prison. Willem Dafoe was set to be the voice of Ironbeard.
Nice.
That would have been so good.
That would have been pretty badass.
That would have been a really fun movie. I'm so sad it got canceled.
I wonder if he would have used his line from the masterpiece Speed 2 Cruise Control. Isn't there a saying the captain always goes down with the ship?
That actually would have been a great
Probably would have been
use of that line.
Definitely.
And even though it didn't do well in the theaters, this is a well-regarded movie. It has really great scores on Rotten Tomatoes, on IMDb. Generally speaking, for a lot of movie lovers, this is a well-regarded movie.
Yeah.
And that includes the Academy. Because in 2003, this was nominated for Best Animated Feature Film at the Oscars.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, John, do you remember what animated film won in 2003?
I was just racking my brain. 2003 Best Animated Feature Film.
It's a foreign film.
Oh, okay. Was it The Triplets of Belleville?
You introduced me to this film.
Oh, I did? Mm-hmm. Oh, Spirited Away.
Spirited Away.
All right. Fantastic. Miyazaki.
Miyazaki.
Ghibli.
That's right.
Wonderful.
And so that is Treasure Planet, an oft-forgotten, sorely underrated, giant box office bomb recommended movie from me this week.
That's crazy. I love it. I thought it was great. I'm going to definitely watch it again.
I'm so glad to hear that. And since it's a Disney movie, Guess where you can watch it?
Oh, I wonder where. Oh, Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, if you have a subscription.
Plus. Hell yeah.
And I think that's a perfect time to go on another adventure and talk about your pick.
I think so. I am ready to go on this adventure. I hope you are as well, because we're going back really, really far, a year before your movie came out.
That's right.
But we're actually going to go back to the year 360 BC, when Plato wrote about this movie. Well, not really this movie, but the city that this movie is based on.
That's right.
This movie opens up with Plato's saying, "In a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea." And if that doesn't give you any hint about what my movie's called this week, it's Atlantis, The Lost Empire. This movie came out in 2001. This movie has the voice talents of Michael J. Fox, John Mahoney, Jim Varney, Leonard Nimoy, James Garner, Don Novello, Phil Morris, and a whole handful of other folks. This movie's centered on Milo Thatch. He is a young explorer working in the bowels of a museum, basically. The movie opens up with our introduction of Milo Thatch. He is getting ready to present this massive finding of a piece of history that he was able to translate that was actually mistranslated way back in the day. This movie takes place in 1914, and Milo is very gung-ho about trying to find the lost city of Atlantis. We also find out that he had a grandfather, Thaddeus Thatch, oddly enough, interesting name, that was an explorer. At one point in Thaddeus's discoveries, he finds the Shepherd's Journal, and the Shepherd's Journal is pretty much the final piece that Milo needs to get himself to Atlantis.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. First off, I'd like to thank this board for taking the time to hear my proposal. Now, we've all heard of the legend of Atlantis, a continent somewhere in the mid-Atlantic that was home to an advanced civilization, possessing technology far beyond our own. That, according to our friend Plato here, was suddenly struck by some cataclysmic event that sank it beneath the sea. Now, some of you may ask, why Atlantis? It's just a myth, isn't it? Pure fantasy. Well, that is where you'd be wrong. 10,000 years before the Egyptians built the pyramids, Atlantis had electricity, advanced medicine, even the power of flight. Impossible, you say. Well, no, not for them. Numerous ancient cultures all over the globe agree that Atlantis possessed a power source of some kind, more powerful than steam, than coal, more powerful than our modern internal combustion engines. Gentlemen, I propose that we find Atlantis, find that power source, and bring it back to the surface. Now, this is a page from an illuminated text that describes a book called The Shepherd's Journal, said to have been a first-hand account of Atlantis and its exact whereabouts.
What he's doing is trying to present this idea of an expedition that he can go on with people that he can hire. He just needs to be funded for it, and he's about to present this to museum curators in 1914 and hopefully be taken seriously, because we find out that he's pretty much been cold-shouldered and disregarded as a kook, very similarly like his grandfather Thaddeus. One thing leads to another, and we are introduced to Whitmore, who is voiced by John Mahoney. And John Mahoney's character, Whitmore, we find out was a very old friend of Thaddeus Thatch. And this is a great introduction to this character, because not only is it very hilarious, but so much comes forward about the expeditions that Thaddeus went on that Milo actually did not know about while he was growing up. And we end up finding out that Thaddeus did in fact find the Shepherd's Journal and has this piece of Atlantean history that can lead whomever is ready to go on an expedition to Atlantis.
It's all been arranged. The whole ball of wax.
Why?
For years, your granddad bent my ear with stories about that old book. I didn't buy it for a minute. So finally, I got fed up and I made a bet with the old coot. I said, Thatch, if you ever actually find that so-called journal, not only will I finance the expedition, but I'll kiss you full on the mouth. Imagine my embarrassment when he found the darn thing. Now, I know your grandfather's gone, Milo. God rest his soul. But Preston Whitmore is a man who keeps his word. You hear that, Thatch? I'm going to the afterlife with a clear conscience, by thunder! Your grandpa was a great man. You probably don't realize how great. Those buffoons in the museum dragged him down, made a laughingstock of him. He died a broken man. If I could bring back just one shred of proof, that'd be enough for me. Oh, Thatch. What are we standing around for? We got work to do.
But Mr. Whitmore, in order to do what you're proposing, you're gonna need a crew.
Taken care of.
You'll need engineers and geologists.
Got them all. Best of the best. Gaetan Moliere, geology and excavation. And has a nose for dirt. Vincenzo Santorini, demolitions. Busted him out of a Turkish prison. Audrey Ramirez, don't let her age fool you. She's forgotten more about engines than you and I'll ever know. They had the same crew that brought the journal back.
Where was it?
Iceland.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it.
All we need now is an expert in gibberish. So, it's decision time. You can build on the foundation your grandfather left you, or you can go back to your boiler room.
This is for real.
Now you're catching on.
All right. Okay, I have to quit my job.
It's done. You resigned this afternoon.
I did?
Yep, don't like to leave loose ends.
My apartment. I'm gonna have to give notice.
Taken care of.
My clothes?
Packed.
My books?
In storage.
My cat?
The whole thing just is really coming together for Milo in these very brief moments of this movie, within like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like, the exposition, I think, is really great. The excitement that Milo has, and on top of the fact that the animation is great, Michael J. Fox's enthusiasm for this character just really brings me into the movie so much more. And I saw this movie in theaters. I have the VHS. I've loved this movie since it came out, so I've loved this movie for 23 years now. I mean, we're in 2024. It's a forgotten gem of Disney animation, in my personal opinion. And very similarly to Treasure Planet, it has a lot of hand-drawn animation and a lot of CGI 3D animation as well. And the movie opens up with both. And I really like the opening of this movie, and we're not going to get into that too much because we don't spoil a whole lot of things here. But one thing leads to another. So Milo is now thrust into going to find the lost city of Atlantis with the Shepherd's Journal with fellow explorers. So we meet Rourke, we meet Helga, we meet Dr. Sweet, we meet Vinny, we meet Audrey, we meet Mrs. Packard. This whole group of explorers that we find out actually help Thaddeus find the Shepherd's Journal. He's now on this quest with people that not only explored with his grandfather, but knew and respected his grandfather. And I love a lot of these characters. I love Audrey. I think she's great. I love Vinny. Vinny is voiced by Don Novello, and if anybody doesn't know him by name, he is in Casper. He plays the priest that gets his head turned around. He's also in a whole lot of SNL he's in a whole lot of SNL pieces as well. In Casper, he plays Father Guido. He has one of my favorite lines in all of Casper when he goes, "Oh, it'll be a piece of cake, a piece of crumb cake." I love that moment. It's very simple, but it's very hilarious. We have Jim Varney, who plays Cookie, who is basically the cook of all these explorers. And, of course, if you don't know Jim Varney, he was Ernest. He's also Slinky the dog in Toy Story. And Milo is so excited about this, and he doesn't really know these people yet, so he's trying to get them as excited as he is because he kind of feels like, they might really just be in it for the money. So he's telling them about the Leviathan, which is this creature that protects the gates of Atlantis underwater if anybody ever does come close enough to find it. And very unfortunately, a little bit of mishap happens, and now they are a bit stranded in a place they've never been before. And for the rest of the movie, they're trying to figure out how to either get home or get to the city of Atlantis.
I love that part with James Garner, who, by the way, was very hot in this movie. Really liked his character. He also has a great voice. Love his voice acting work. But I love when, after this unfortunate encounter happens, and their submarine was super cool.
Oh, hell yeah.
Definitely
so awesome.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea style. Loved it.
Absolutely.
But I love because he's the guy leading everyone. He's like, all right, who's not dead? To check on everybody.
I love that. That was so great. And then they actually hold that kind of funeral where we end up finding out just how big this expedition ended up being. Rourke says, "We started out with 200 of the finest men and women I've ever known, and now we're all that's left." And, of course, we have the main characters, which is about 8 or 9 people. And then, of course, the henchmen that are kind of
20 crew members, and that's it.
Yeah, and the henchmen are wearing, gas masks from World War I because World War I began in 1914 and went through 1918. So while World War I is going on, this very rich Whitmore has just dumped millions and millions of dollars into this underwater adventure to try and find the lost city of Atlantis that Plato has talked about. And oddly, I really like the fact that early on in the movie, we find out that before the Egyptians, the Atlanteans had electricity and advanced medicine and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of research that went into this movie, and a lot of it did take place online, which in 2001, I wonder how long it took for all the web pages to load. But it still is interesting to think about. And very awesomely, I think, they really did a great job. These two directors, Kurt Wise and Gary Trousdale, I'll talk about them in their Disney world in just a second. And they actually have a tie-in with Best Picture winner of 2002, animated feature, by the way. They went with Cambodian and Mayan-esque sort of architecture and feel. And the Atlantean language actually was created by Mark Okrand. If you don't know him by name, you'll know these two languages that he's created. V, I wonder if you might be able to take a guess, just out of curiosity.
Did he create Dothrakian?
No, he did not create Dothrakian.
Oh, bummer.
But he created stuff way before Dothrakians. He created the Vulcan and Klingon language. Yeah. So it was very cool to learn that. And very similarly to like The Fifth Element, where Lilu has this language that's never been spoken before. You know, like who are we to know if this is even remotely close to a true Atlantean language? Similar to like Avatar, you know, the Na'vi have their own language that was a created, made-up language for the movie. Mark Okrand did a great job with that, and oddly enough, one of the voice actors in this movie is Leonard Nimoy, and he was a Vulcan. So I can imagine that this was a lot of fun for him to learn. A lot of people, while making this movie, especially in the sound booths, were saying that watching Leonard Nimoy record his vocals was one of the most majestic things they'd ever seen in their lives.
Oh, that's nice.
And on top of that, Michael J. Fox said this was one of his most favorite roles to play because not only was he getting to be very enthusiastic and very boisterous and very intense while recording his dialogue for Milo, he didn't have to worry about what he was going to look like on camera. So he completely let it go and just had a great time. And I got to tell you, on top of the other people that were considered, which we'll get into in a little bit, but Michael J. Fox, I think, was perfect for Milo. Like, the animation fits his voice so well, and maybe that's because I've watched this movie for the last 22 years, but it just really sells Milo, and it's on top of James Garner and Jim Varney. Like, the voice casting was pretty spot on.
It really was. I thought he did a great job, and he has the voice for a nerdy, sciencey guy, right, who's socially awkward, and funny enough, he was on the short list for Treasure Planet until Atlantis came out, and so he wasn't the voice of Jim Hawkins.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Michael J. Fox was choosing two different movies to voice before he chose Atlantis. Atlantis was one of the choices. The other one was a Don Bluth-directed Titan A.E.
Oh!
Titan A.E., if anybody's not seen that movie, that is a badass movie. Have you seen Titan A.E.?
Nope.
Oh, it's so killer. Bill Pullman does the voice. Really bitchin' animation. I remember my family and I went and saw it in theaters. Really kick-ass flick. But Michael J. Fox decided to let his son choose which movie he was going to voice, and his son went with the Disney option instead.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome.
I do agree, though, because the first note I made for this movie was great voice casting.
Yeah, hell yeah. Especially Jim Varney as Cookie. Like, I love him so much. And one of my favorite lines actually comes from Cookie in this movie. He's going through his inventory because he's the cook, and he's like, what are all these? You got me well, just listen to this.
Blondie, I got a bone to pick with you.
Hold that thought. What is it this time, Cookie?
You done stuffed my wagon full to busting with non-essentials. Look at all this. Cinnamon, oregano, cilantro. What in a cockadoodle is cilantro? What is this?
That would be lettuce.
Lettuce? Lettuce?
It's a vegetable, Cookie. The men need the 4 basic food groups.
I got you 4 basic food groups. Beans, bacon, whiskey, and lard.
My favorite voice actors of this movie are actually James Garner and John Mahoney. They're both great. John Mahoney has voiced other roles before, and we've talked about him on this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's the dad in Frasier. There are so many connections to the
There's a lot.
This
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
Jesus Christ. But also, the lead woman in this film, Helga, who's Rourke's second in command, she's actually played by Claudia Christian, who I recognize because she's actually the first officer in a sci-fi show called Babylon 5 that I absolutely loved.
Oh my gosh. I remember Babylon 5.
Yeah, and so she's the first officer in that show, which was fantastic, and that's how I recognize her. I'm like, I know this voice, and it finally clicked for me. I was like, oh my God, it's Claudia Christian, that's awesome.
Hell yeah. Now, I love her introduction, too, when she's in Milo's apartment, and he goes, how did you get in? She goes, I came down the chimney. Ho, ho, ho. So awesome. And the music is all, like, noir and sexy, you know, and because, of course, you look at her and you're like, oh, shit.
Yes.
Like, she is drawn beautifully.
She's definitely drawn that way.
Yes, she is. Look at that. Another reference to an old episode.
And Mrs. Packard is Probably my favorite character of this whole movie.
I love Mrs. Packard.
The older operator of the crew is just so dry and deadpan and hysterical.
Every time they cut to her, she's on the phone with Margie, and she's like talking about Margie's problematic love life. And actually, she was one of the final characters to be drawn smoking any kind of tobacco product.
I was wondering. So in all of Disney history, probably
pretty much.
2001, that makes sense. They were stopping.
I love early on, right before the mishap happens underwater, and she's trying to get the commander's attention. She's like, Commander. Just, like you said, super dry and just like completely melancholy and very hilarious. Disney was not very thrilled with the reception of this movie, which is unfortunate. I'm a big fan of this movie, and I know a lot of people are as well. My buddy Andrew and I could not stop talking about it. We each saw it separately, but when we both ended up hanging out a few weeks later, we were like, dude, Atlantis was just so badass. And Disneyland actually planned to turn their submarine ride into an underwater Atlantis ride.
Yeah.
But because it did not do so well, they ended up scrapping the idea. And it's now actually a Finding Nemo ride, which is not a bad ride. I just think an Atlantis ride would have been fun. But the way that Disney kind of like turns things over, I feel like at this point it probably would have been a Finding Nemo ride anyway.
Yes, that's true.
In the future. So that was a little bit sad to hear because I totally would have ridden it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you would have. That would have been really cool. I've always enjoyed these types of stories. Lost Treasure, Lost Empires, like I said, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's definitely right up my alley. And so I think there are so many reasons why these two movies pair so well together.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Early concept drawings for this movie were drawn by Mike Mignola. And Mike Mignola may not be a name that a lot of people recognize, but when I was reading up on him, I was very happy to see that he lended his artistic capabilities to this movie because he's the creator of Hellboy.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, very, very awesome.
That's very cool.
Jim Varney, voice of Cookie, very unfortunately died before this movie could get finished.
Oh.
He passed away from lung cancer. He was a very heavy smoker.
Hence the voice.
Yes, hence the voice indeed. But as he was lending his voice to Cookie, animation was in the process of being finished. So the directors were able to show him a lot of some of the finished sequences that he had voiced. And he did nothing but praise the fact that this is how he was going to be going out. Like, this was his final performance as a voice actor in the Disney world, in any world, because he very unfortunately passed away in February of 2000. So that gives you a little bit of context of how long this movie took to make.
Yes.
Because this movie was released on June 15th of 2001.
Wow.
Now, Leonard Nimoy does the voice of the King of Atlantis. There was one actor that was in consideration to play the King of Atlantis, and we love him very much. We've discussed him. Tim Curry. I think that would have been fun. A pseudo-universe, I would like to see it, but I think Leonard Nimoy was exactly who we needed.
I think someone with a reverence and subdued voice was best for that role.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And again, Tim Curry, nothing against the guy at all, but I feel like he would have been a little bit more on the boisterous side, whereas Leonard Nimoy brought it down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I think he would have been a better Rourke than the King of Atlantis.
Ah, there we go. There were some other actors that were in consideration to play Commander Rourke. Tommy Lee Jones.
I could totally see that.
100% could see that. And Kurt Russell.
Oh, Kurt Russell, that would have been fun too.
Yeah, I think that would have been a blast. Now, V, this is the third film that Michael J. Fox has voiced for Disney. I wonder if you know what the other two are.
Isn't he a voice in Bolt?
No, he's not. Earlier 90s movies. Bolt was in the 2000s. So
okay.
Michael J. Fox lent his voice to two different Disney movies coming out in the early 90s. They were...
Wait, isn't he the voice of Stuart Little?
Yes, but that is not a Disney movie.
Okay.
Although it is now because Disney did buy 20th Century.
Okay. With Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie and Gina Davis.
Yeah.
No, he lent his voice to a dog named Chance in Homeward Bound.
Oh,
The
thank
Incredible
you.
Journey,
Yes, I knew it was a
and
dog.
Homeward Bound 2. Yes.
You always talk about Bolt, which is why I thought of it.
Oh, yeah. No, I do love Bolt, but no. Michael J. Fox was the voice of Chance
That's right.
in the Homeward Bound films. So this brought upon his third voice acting for Disney, which is awesome because
Nice.
I love the first Homeward Bound, was not so much a fan of the second one.
Oh, animal movies always make me cry.
Yeah, especially Homeward Bound. I actually have not watched that movie, I think, since I was in my teens, and I feel like if I watched it now after all the animals I've lost in my life, I would have a very tough time.
Yeah, same. That's why I can never watch Marley and Me again.
I've never seen that movie.
Don't do it to yourself, dude.
I don't plan on it.
Yeah.
I worked on the trailers, and I remember actually going into the music department, and there was this one woman that worked there. She was from Australia, and I walked in, and she was just red-faced and was crying so much. I'm like, Natalie, what's the problem? She goes, I'm watching Marley and Me. And I'm like, oh, well, okay.
So
That's my terrible Australian accent for everybody.
You're the son of a bitch who tricked all of us. I can blame you because the trailers did not give anything away, and we all thought this was going to be some fun, hilarious dog movie with Owen Wilson in it.
Unfortunately, it was not.
No.
Unfortunately, it was not.
Oh, God.
Terrible. Yes. Now, there are several other actors that were in consideration to play Milo Thatch. Now, this list, a few of them I can definitely see, and a few of them I absolutely cannot see.
Oh, it's my favorite.
So, yeah, the ones I cannot see, Kevin Spacey.
No.
Exactly. Brad Pitt.
No.
Nicolas Cage.
No. God.
And Jim Carrey.
No.
As much as I love me some Jim Carrey, Nick Cage, Brad Pitt, and Kevin Spacey, I
mean,
just don't see it.
The irony is Nick Cage then went on to play a live-action Disney treasure hunting movie.
Exactly. And those that I could see voicing Milo before Michael J. Fox got the offer, and maybe in a pseudo-universe, I could see these as well. Jason Schwartzman.
Yes.
I could see him totally. Tobey Maguire.
Definitely.
Breckenmeyer.
Oh, the
Yeah.
skater boy from Clueless for everyone.
Yes. Jason Lee.
My name is Earl.
Yep, my name is Earl.
He's too much of a dirtbag. He has that kind of arrogant tone to his voice that I couldn't see Jason Lee pulling off a geeky Milo.
Interesting. I loved him as Syndrome in The Incredibles, though.
Perfect example. He was a prick in that
Very
movie.
arrogant child. Yeah, that very arrogant man-child is Syndrome.
Yes.
Definitely. And Jamie Kennedy, your buddy from the Scream movies.
I could see him. I could see him doing that. I think his voice is a little bit grating, but he's got that eager geek vibe to him.
Yeah,
I could see
definitely.
that. Yeah.
And there's a character in this movie named Mole. He's a very interesting character, and Dr. Sweet says to Milo about Mole that he doesn't want to know his story. And he looks at Audrey and he goes, Audrey, don't tell him. I told you not to tell me, and now I know it, and I didn't want to know. I thought I love that moment. There were a couple other actors in consideration to play Mole. Two of them I could see. The other one I don't know if I could see because I don't know a whole lot of his work, but D.L. Hughley was one of them.
To play Mole or Sweets?
Yeah. No, Mole.
Interesting. No.
Yeah. Chris Rock, I could see.
Yes.
And our buddy, John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
I could totally see that
I
one.
could see. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that would have been a lot of fun.
I would have enjoyed hearing a John Leguizamo French accent again, though.
Oh, hell yeah. That would be so awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this movie came out around the time that Moulin Rouge came out, where he plays Toulouse.
Exactly.
So that would have actually been very cool. So there's our honorable mention of John Leguizamo. One of these days, maybe we'll have him on the podcast.
Hope so. We sure love him here.
Yes, we do. Now, again, I mentioned that Atlantis was not very well received by the critics, but the public is a big fan of the movie. A lot of people say this is one of their favorite early 2000s Disney movies. I am right there with them. I love it. The animation is fantastic. James Newton Howard's score is amazing. The story is great. It moves right along. It's only about an hour and a half, but it feels like it's over before you know it. And I also wanted to mention that the Atlantean princess, Kida is her name, is voiced by an actress named Cree Summer. And she has been a voice actress for multiple decades, and she has said that Atlantis, the Lost Empire, is one of her greatest achievements.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Now, this movie had a $120 million budget, so it was $20 million less than yours.
Wow. The parallels with our movies this week.
I know. Now, just wait for the U.S. and worldwide.
I hope it did better than my movie.
The U.S. and worldwide did do a little bit better than yours. The U.S. box office domestically, so U.S. and Canada, was $84 million.
Okay.
Not great, but still better than Treasure Planet.
Yes.
And the worldwide box office came in at $186 million.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I wonder, though, we've discussed like why people may have missed a certain movie, why certain movies may have not necessarily been as well received. Atlantis came out a year before Treasure Planet, and they are very similar movies. So I wonder if people were just like, I've seen Atlantis already.
I think it had to do with Pixar being super hot at that time.
Oh, sure.
Late 90s, early 2000s, it was all Pixar, and so these traditionally animated films really fell off for a while. In fact, I don't know if they've even really ever come back strongly.
No, I agree. Well, oddly enough, The Princess and the Frog was hand-drawn, so that was a few years after this. I think about 10 years. I think that came out in 2011.
Early 2000s, we were starting to get into comic book movies. Animated really took a back seat.
Unfortunately, yes.
I think it was a timing issue for both our movies.
I think you're right, yeah.
If these movies had been released in the 90s, they would have been great.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, my gosh. But again, they are still great. They just weren't as...
They would have done great, though.
Yes, they would have soared far above what they did, unfortunately, in the box office domestically and worldwide.
Which makes sense because it took 15 years for Treasure Planet to get made.
Oh, my gosh. Early concepts for Atlantis: The Lost Empire actually started in 1996 after the directors Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale had success with Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Now,
both these guys directed Hunchback. They also directed Beauty and the Beast.
Nice.
Yeah, so they had some good hits on their hands. And I don't know if you've seen Hunchback of Notre Dame in the last...
Ever.
I don't know how... Ever. Well, there you go. My wife and I watched it last year. It is a good movie. It's funny, it's fucked up, and the music is amazing. So congrats to both of these guys for having that and Beauty and the Beast under their belt. And Kurt Wise was the director of the U.S. production team for the Oscar winner of Best Animated Feature of 2002, Spirited Away.
Nice.
So another tie-in.
Yeah.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Came out in 2001. It's streaming on Disney Plus now if you care to check it out, if you have not already. I would say it's definitely a family-friendly movie. It is PG rated. When I started the movie on Disney Plus, it said contains tobacco depictions, which it absolutely does. I love this movie, and I have since it came out. I can't say enough good things about this movie, and I really hope that those that have not seen it give it a shot because it deserves to be seen.
I agree. I had a really good time with it. I love adventure movies. I love hidden treasure movies. I love riddles, things like that. And so both of these movies are really fantastic offerings for people who haven't seen them before, people who have kids that are, I would say, around 10 or even 8, honestly. And
yeah,
I think it really comes down to what you're in the mood for. Are you in the mood for an ocean adventure or a space adventure? And that'll help you decide which one of our movies to watch first.
There you go. There you go. And the cool thing is, Amy and I watched them back to back. So we did Treasure Planet first and Atlantis. Like I said, I had seen Atlantis so many times. So it was a lot of fun and a great double feature. And Amy and myself are big fans of both. And yeah, it was a great revisiting to a early 2000s Disney and a year later 2000s Disney.
Exactly. Good. Well, I'm glad we both enjoyed each other's picks this week.
Absolutely.
And John, we've already kind of been talking about it, but would you watch Atlantis: The Lost Empire with your grandma?
Oh yeah, I definitely did. At least once or twice.
Nice.
Yes. I know my grandmother was a big fan of it. I know my grandfather actually liked it too because he, on the same spectrum like you and me, enjoys movies like this, adventure, underwater.
It's a little steampunk-esque too, and
your
grandfather was a Navy man, so it makes sense he liked this film.
Hell yeah. And V, would you watch Treasure Planet with your grandma?
Oh yeah, I think this is a really fun film. Any age can really enjoy adventure movies, right? And I think, the characters on the ship are a bit creepy, and there's some peril in your movie as well. And so I would say 8 or 10 and above, depending on the kid.
Yeah, I think so. All right, well, that has been our Disney animated adventure episode here at episode 92 at Movies You Miss Podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. V, do you want to tell everybody what we're doing next week?
Oh, I sure do.
Hell yeah.
We are discussing Comedy Gold next week.
Yes.
And also paying a little bit of an homage to my first pick ever of the show, because these are Ben Stiller movies.
Hell yeah.
We both love these movies equally. It was really a tug of war to decide who was going to do which. So I think we're both going to have a great time with these films next week. But for me, my pick will be the Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn-led Dodgeball.
Nice.
And you can stream it right now if you have a Hulu subscription.
Wonderful. I will watch my DVD copy.
And John, what Ben Stiller movie did you pick?
Oh boy, I picked a doozy, a fantastic Oscar-nominated feature film from Ben Stiller, written by Ben Stiller and Justin Theroux and Ethan Coen, directed by Ben Stiller, starring Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., Jack Black, Brandon T. Jackson, and Nick Nolte, and Danny McBride, and Tom motherfucking Cruise.
Yeah!
I chose Tropic Thunder, everybody. And if you don't own this movie, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you, but it is streaming on Paramount Plus if you'd like to follow along. Tropic Thunder is, and I don't use this word lightly, a masterpiece.
I am equally parts excited and envious that you picked this movie.
I can't wait. I know you and I watched it when you were visiting last time, so I can't wait to watch it again. And I guarantee you when I put it on, my wife's going to be like, didn't you just watch it? And I'm going to say, I sure fucking did.
That's right.
And I'm going to watch it again. Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 92. Please do rate, review, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're on all the socials. Let's have some fun. Let's discuss some movies. Our 2023 roundup is coming up. I can't wait, as is our reviewer request episode, which is going to be great. And please, as we've always said, do continue to go to the movies. Keep physical media alive as well, and keep buying DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks. Keep physical media alive, because if it does go away, that's going to be a massive problem for a lot of people, including myself.
Especially because of how streaming services are going. We are going to be completely tied to streaming services if physical media goes away. I personally don't collect a lot of physical media. However, I do see its value. I understand why we need it, and I wholeheartedly agree with you.
All right, fantastic. And as always, we do like to close out here at Movies You Miss Podcast with film is a form of art, and in art, all opinions are valid, except if you think
the potential Warner Brothers Paramount merger isn't going to be a complete disaster.
Oh, I like it. I guess we'll have to find out and see what happens.
Well, Tom Cruise just inked a massive deal with Warner Brothers to a point where he now has an office on the lot.
Damn.
And most of his catalog is Paramount produced, so I think that's
true.
A signal that this merger, unfortunately, is going to move forward. And that's further monopolization of streaming service, of studios, elimination of independent movies. So I really hope that actually doesn't happen.
I'm right there with you. I hope not.
Well, that's my take of the week.
All right. Once again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you next week for Dodgeball and Tropic Thunder.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.